revolution begins with this revolver.
The Italian immigrant who reinvented banking. His idea was, give the little guy a shot. The alchemist who struck musical gold.
It was flexible, that it was strong, and it would give a nice, brilliant sound.
And the game that made greed good.
People discovered the joy of bankrupting their family and friends.
This is my $1 million invention. Guns and gold mines. 1869, Gallatin, Missouri. The aftermath of the American Civil War. Miners, traders, and farmers are forging the towns on which modern America will be built. Jesse and Frank James fought and lost for the South. Now they're outlaws. Armed with an invention that will come to define the era. The Colt revolver. The first practical repeating firearm in history.
The Colt was part of a revolution in gun technology. And now you had guns made where there were multiple bullets so that you could kill more people.
The Colt revolver is a powerful symbol of America's past, especially the westward expansion.
You really can't talk about the United States in the 19th century without talking about the Colt.
On December the 7th, the James brothers enter the Daviess County Savings Association. They steal $700. Locals, armed with dated single-shot rifles, can't match the firepower of the gang's 6-shot Colt pistols. The legend of the James Gang is born.
It is the age of the great lawman, it is the age of the great bandit, the age of the great gunfighter. Colt is at the center of that.
Prior to the Colt revolver, shooters grapple with single-shot weapons.
You've got to put powder down a barrel, you have to ram that bullet down, then you have to put a cap or a flint or a match on it, cock that, and then fire and deliver the round. And if you've missed, or if you've done the drill wrong, you're a dead man.
From as early as 1790, attempts are made to design multiple shot weapons. Instead of a cylinder full of bullets, up to 7 separate barrels are rotated by hand. By the 1830s, this evolves into the infamous pepperbox gun, a multiple-barrel handgun with a serious flaw.
It had a tendency to chain fire, meaning all the chambers go off at once. The safest place in the world was literally in front of it.
Clearly, the holy grail for firearms designers is a way to create a functioning multi-shot weapon that you can hold in your hand.
In 1830, firearm design captures the imagination of one young man. Samuel Colt, a merchant's son, obsessed with problem solving.
The United States that Colt grew up in is still fairly young. It is one of the first countries which early on embraces technology in terms of solving problems.
Colt is fascinated by guns. Like every weapon of the day, his grandfather's flintlock pistol fires just one shot. Inspired by a book of inventions, Colt sets his mind to solving the riddle of multiple shot weapons.
As a young man, he went to serve an apprenticeship at sea. That was a rough life.
Bound for India, aboard the Corvo, Colt becomes intrigued by the mechanism of the ship's wheel.
Most people would have looked at that wheel and just seen a wheel. Colt looks at it and sees the potential.
At its hub is a system enabling one man to keep the heavy ship on course. A pivoted catch springs in and out of a notched ratchet, fixing the wheel, preventing dramatic changes of direction.
It sees the potential of being able to rotate a cylinder with multiple rounds in it, but having a mechanism align that spinning cylinder with each cock of the hammer.
Colt's eureka moment is the beginning of an epic journey that will make him an industrial pioneer and million-dollar lord of war.
He set about carving a revolver that would eventually change the world.
But it will take a brutal battle to turn Colt's revolutionary design into the gun that won the West. San Francisco. Today, it's one of America's most iconic, prosperous cities. But in 1906, it's almost destroyed by a deadly earthquake. A disaster that will launch an invention that changes global finance forever. Branch banking. And it's only possible because one banker is prepared to walk through fire to save a city.
Bankers today, of course, don't have the best reputation, and deservedly so. But one banker who was kind of a hero of bankers would be A.P. Giannini.
1876. San Jose, California. Giannini is 6 years old. His father, Luigi, arrived in America with nothing. Now he's a successful farmer. But a day laborer, hired to help with the harvest, is about to change everything.
There was a dispute between the two men about the amount of money the laborer had earned. The man left angry. He came back a week later.
At 6 years old, Giannini's life is torn apart. His family sinks into poverty.
His mother was left a widow with young sons in a strange country where she had no family, no resources, no nothing. But he pulled himself together, he watched his mother pull herself together, and they went on and they made a new life.
Giannini's mother remarries. With his new stepfather, Giannini builds a business, buying and selling produce within San Francisco's Italian community. He's so successful, he retires aged just 30. But Giannini is soon restless.
This was a man of tremendous energy and passion, and he needed something to do. And fate handed him something to do.
On his stepfather's death, Giannini inherits his seat on the board of a savings and loan bank, a business he knows nothing about.
He realized that the board of directors were not willing to support small business people who just needed a small amount of money, most of whom were immigrants who were starting with nothing.
Giannini can't forget his own struggle out of poverty.
Many of our greatest inventions are very personal. They're personal in that I want to do something to make sure that other people do not have to suffer the way that I had to suffer.
His idea was give the little guy a shot. Right? Before that, it was bankers would just loan to people they knew, right? Other rich people.
Giannini wants to offer banking to all, providing savings and loans for the masses, not just the elite.
The story is that he left that board of directors meeting and said, I'm going to start a bank. Tell me how to do it.
He has this idea that, no, the little guy with his business idea, I'll give him some cash so that he can make his own way and get his piece of the American dream, and in turn pay me back with a little interest. Giannini names his business the Bank of Italy. He sets out to persuade first-time depositors to trust him with their money.
These were people who came to California with their life savings sewn into a belt or hidden in a jar. And quite a few people took him up on it. He received $8,000 in deposits on the very first day.
The Bank of Italy is a runaway success in a rapidly expanding San Francisco.
Very much about assessing the needs of the customer and meeting those needs. Prior to A.P. Giannini, banking services were given in terms of the banking's terms. A.P. Giannini turned that around.
Next, everything Giannini has built faces destruction, and another $1 million invention transforms copper and tin into a gold mine. Music has spawned many $1 million inventions.
American society cannot overestimate the importance of its music. Jazz, rock and roll, rhythm and blues, country music, gospel music. It really is the sound of our society.
But one of music's strangest stories of invention comes from an instrument that's often overlooked. The cymbal. Its creation is the story of a maverick alchemist, attempted murder, and a family secret that will survive 400 years, all the way from Turkey to Massachusetts. (1622) in Istanbul, an Armenian metal worker, Avitus, spends his nights chasing a dream. Alchemy.
If there was some kind of chemical, magical way of transforming copper and iron into gold, my God, right? That's like printing money.
Hundreds of alchemists worldwide have failed. But on this night, Avitus is about to stumble onto the formula for musical gold. He melts copper, tin, and a final mystery substance, and creates a new alloy.
It was flexible, that it was strong, and it would give a nice, brilliant sound.
Avitus can see it isn't gold, but what he hears makes him think it could still be valuable. As a weapon in the Sultan's army.
You needed to have something that could kind of pierce the din and give directions to the armies, as well as intimidate the enemy and give your fellow soldiers a sense of, all right, we're going to do this thing.
The ruler, Sultan Osman II, pays Avitus 80 gold pieces for his new symbols. And he's so impressed, he gives the alchemist a new name.
Zildjian, which means Zil, symbol, DJ, in Armenian that means smith, and IAN in Armenian is son. So Zildjian, son of the cymbal smith.
The army contract makes Avitus rich. And to protect his family's fortunes, he will pass on his symbol formula to just one person, his eldest son. For 280 years, Zildjian's descendants keep the secret, becoming Turkey's largest manufacturer of cymbals. But in 1905, they faced losing everything. The Armenian minority in Turkey faced persecution. Thousands are murdered. Aram Zildjian, latest heir to the cymbal business, won't go quietly.
You know, there was always Uncle Fester in the basement blowing things up. We had an Uncle Fester.
He plots to kill Turkey's ruler, Sultan Abdul Hamid II, with a homemade bomb.
He had bought an identical carriage to the one that the Sultan was using and had it outside of a place where the Sultan had been meeting.
But Aram's plot is about to go wrong. His bomb goes off 2 hours early, and evidence found in the wreckage shows that he purchased the replica carriage.
He decided, I gotta get out of town.
The secret formula for cymbals leaves Turkey in an exodus that will make Zildjian one of the biggest names in American music. 1832. Samuel Colt needs money to build the first ever prototype for a revolver, and he'll do whatever it takes.
Roll up, everybody, and try out the Samuel Colt magical vapor. You too can.
He tours the country, cashing in on the latest craze, laughing gas.
Being an inventor isn't just about coming up with a great idea. It's about getting that idea to market, and that takes money, that takes capital.
This is a determined man, and he's going to do it any way he can.
Passing himself off as the celebrated Dr. Colt, he slowly earns the money he needs to bankroll his revolver revolution.
While this might seem a bit frivolous, actually, it's very important in the future career of Colt in the sense that he learns showmanship. He learns how to sell.
In 1836, Colt raises the money for a patent and a prototype of his new weapon, the Patterson. His unique revolving cylinder mechanism is advanced by a ratchet every time the hammer's pulled back.
This was the first practical revolving percussion arm of the time. It's a 5-shot cylinder, and a little trigger would fall down, and you just pull that. Worked fine every time.
Colt's sure the U.S. Army will bulk buy his futuristic firearm. So he secures investment to build a factory and starts manufacturing 1,000 revolvers. But when he meets with officials, they aren't convinced.
Governments especially want things that they know. They don't want to spend a lot of money on something that's not proven. They fought lots of wars with single-shot muskets before. Why do they need this pistol?
Colt's left with a warehouse full of revolvers and mounting debts. In just a few years, he's bankrupt. Next, a battle 2,000 miles away in Texas sets Colt on the path to millions. And another new invention gets its chance. 1933. America is gripped by the worst depression in its history. Millions are unemployed. The nation is on its knees. But from the depths of financial ruin comes the best-selling board game of all time. Monopoly. Its invention is the story of an unemployed heating salesman who makes millions. And a woman written out of history.
Although a man took credit for the invention of Monopoly, it was actually created by a woman.
It's 1933, and in Germantown, Philadelphia, Charles Darrow is about to see something that will change his life forever.
Charles Darrow was invited to a dinner party in his neighborhood and played this new game. It was so much more challenging than most board games of the time, and you could almost see the light bulb go on over his head.
It's completely different from any game he's ever played. For one thing, it doesn't have a start or finish, just a continual clockwise path.
As simple as that sounds, it was a radical idea for its day.
Players buy and sell properties, go to jail, and take a chance, winning and losing thousands of dollars.
It plays into people's aspirational ideals about owning a home, about making money, about having a better life.
Darrow, an unemployed heating salesman, is transfixed.
You could play with fantasy money in a way that so many people couldn't then or now do in real life.
Darrow immediately sets about making his own version. Today, it occupies pride of place at the Museum of Play in Rochester, New York.
This is the first Monopoly board. The one that was hand-painted by Charles Darrow. It's made out of oilcloth.
Copying from the board he saw, Darrow uses Atlantic City street names. But he also adds the iconic Go Corner and groups each set of properties with a color.
What Darrow did was to give it the look and feel that we know to this day, and he provided the common man's touch.
The images on it are the ones we know right down to the present. It has shaped the rest of game history.
Darrow patents Monopoly and sells it to Parker Brothers, the world's leading game manufacturer, for a royalty on every copy sold.
It became an absolute mania.
Within the space of 6 or 7 months, it sold 250,000 copies.
And they couldn't keep it in stock.
Darrow becomes the world's first millionaire game designer.
He retired, he bought a farm, and he loved to travel the world.
And that's the official story, as found in the booklet that comes with every new board.
The problem is it isn't exactly true. What really happened is a woman invented it in 1904.
30 years before the Great Depression and Darrow, America is enjoying a financial boom, overseen by the wealthy robber barons.
We had Carnegie, Rockefeller, all these big names that were wealthier in a way that we had never really seen in this country before at the time.
Enter Quaker, activist, and former actress Lizzie McGee, inventor of the landlord's game.
Lizzie McGee was a pretty astonishing woman for her time. Way before women could vote, she made the landlord's game as a teaching tool.
McGee believes the nation's greed will be its downfall, so she creates a radical new board game with an anti-capitalist message.
She wanted a game that would teach people how awful it was to have a money-grubbing landlord who gouged you on your rents.
She innovates the continuous playing path, chance, and go to jail. And the winner is the player who has the most cash, cards, and houses at the end. But when McGee shows her game to Parker Brothers, they pass without giving her $200.
Parker Brothers rejected Lizzie McGee's game. I think at the time they thought it was a little bit too political, a little too educational.
So in 1906, Lizzie McGee self-publishes the Landlord's Game. Hardly anyone buys it.
This is one of the few remaining Lizzie McGee Landlord's Game. But you can see how drab it is, how filled with writing, how uninteresting it was, and that's the way that people found it.
But her game refuses to die. Instead, bootleg handmade versions spring up around the country.
It was not uncommon for the public to make their own homemade versions, usually using the street names from their town.
There are New York versions of the game, there are Boston versions of the game, there are Philadelphia versions of the game, so that core idea that she had really spread like fire.
And as it spreads, the game mutates.
Ironically, what happened was owning groups of land was glorified.
They discovered the joy of bankrupting their family and friends rather than learning about financial justice. And they started calling this twist on the landlord's game monopoly.
It's this game that Darrow sees, copies, and takes to Parker Brothers. And inevitably, it's also this game that Lizzie McGee finally sees in stores and homes around the country.
Lizzie McGee was not delighted at seeing her moral game turned 180 degrees from the message of financial fairness.
But she is prepared to accept $500, $10,000 today, from Parker Brothers for her patent. McGee uses the money to continue her socialist campaign. And in exchange, she's written out of the official Monopoly story.
It is incredible that a woman invented this game and people still care about it a century after a woman went to the patent office.
Today, Monopoly is the most played, best-selling board game of all time. With over 250 million copies sold worldwide.
I think that there's many inventors, but it turns out that there was a father inventor and there was a mother.
It's April 18th, 1906. On the outskirts of San Francisco, A.P. Giannini is about to be caught up in a once-in-a-century event. Has one thing on his mind: rescuing his investors' life savings before everything is destroyed.
He would have come into a city that was in total chaos.
Aftershocks are still hitting San Francisco as he heads to his bank.
Gas pipes burst, water pipes burst. Bricks fell by the millions into the streets. It was total chaos and pandemonium.
The only kind of equivalent would have been the atomic bomb. And it just totally wiped out the city.
For 5 hours, Giannini braves scorching flames and choking dust. And when he finally reaches the street where his bank is based, it's still standing. Trusted staff arrive to help recover the gold deposits. Their mission is fraught with danger. The National Guard have orders to shoot looters on sight.
He covered the money with crates of oranges. and then he threw mattresses on top of the oranges, so that he looked like any of the other refugees from the city streaming out of the downtown areas with their prized possessions.
It takes Giannini 12 hours to escape the city, but he saves all his customers' money, some $20 million today. Most San Franciscans aren't as lucky. 80% of the city is destroyed. 300,000 are homeless. Those left need money to rebuild shattered lives.
The general consensus among the other bankers is it's impossible to open the banks in this kind of an environment. AP knows that people are hungry, that they're frightened, that they need to start rebuilding. And so he decides on his own that he is going to reopen.
The disaster and the crisis opened up an opportunity for anybody willing to rebuild.
He went to the Washington Street Wharf. He got 2 barrels. He got a couple of planks of wood. And set it up right out in the open on the wharf.
He talked to those who'd been affected and lent the money on the basis of a handshake.
This is an example of what capitalism can do right. It's an example of people leveraging the resources they have to help each other out and to help out society as a whole.
His trust in the people of San Francisco pays off.
And lo and behold, all of those loans were repaid. And that neighborhood of San Francisco, North Beach, was one of the first to recover after the earthquake, really in part because A.B. Giannini went to where the need was and lent the money.
But Giannini doesn't stop there. He's inspired to find a way of protecting the Bank of Italy from future disaster.
A.B. Giannini gets this great idea to create branch offices spread throughout the state of California.
What this means is that an economic downturn, a tragedy, a natural disaster in one part of the country doesn't affect the strength of the bank.
By opening in towns across California, Giannini invents branch banking. By 1918, Bank of Italy has 24 West Coast locations. But it's not enough. In 1930, he negotiates a merger with another small chain called the Bank of America and keeps the name. Giannini's $1 million idea, branch banking, goes nationwide.
And that really gives the middle class some capital. And once that happened, right, that's where the real engine of the American economy really began to take off.
Next, Giannini uses his millions to bankroll one of the largest construction projects in U.S. history. And one of the best-kept secrets in music resurfaces in America. In Meductic, Canada, one of North America's oldest family-owned companies guards a 400-year-old secret. A formula handed from father to son for a symbol with a unique sound.
When it's time for somebody in the family to learn the secret, we brought him to the melting room and shown one melt and one process. And then after that, it's pretty much okay. Baptism by fire, go do it.
Only one person outside the factory knows the method of manufacture. Nord Hartwell is head of operations and waited 10 years to be let in on the secret.
Could I tell you? Well, yes. But then I'd have to shoot you.
The secret method is a way of joining copper with tin, traces of silver, and the fourth mystery element. Resulting alloy through a process of rolling and tempering.
You can't flatten them out all in one maneuver. They're rolled through a rolling machine 8 different times.
Hot cymbals are hand-stretched to size.
Now they're starting to look like a cymbal.
Then begins a process of finishing that has been handed down for centuries. It's a process that could have remained in Turkey forever had one Zildjian not chosen America to start a new life. His name is Avidus III. In the early 1900s, he joins thousands of Armenians fleeing ethnic conflict in Turkey and buys a Boston candy store. But the last heir to the Zildjian family secret soon finds his past catching up with him.
My grandmother said, anybody can sell chocolate, but no one can make cymbals the way that your family makes cymbals.
Avidus III begins manufacturing. His timing is perfect. Jazz is the soundtrack of the Roaring '20s, and Zildjian cymbals become integral to the sound.
Jazz was just really starting to take off. Drummers used to come out and talk to my grandfather and say, I'm looking for this type of sound. Can you do it? I want a thinner cymbal. I want a larger cymbal. I want something with a different shape. I want the bell to really bang when I hit it. And in hearing that, he started making thinner cymbals, different shapes, putting in different bows or making them a little bit flatter. Started getting some real texture to each one of these sounds. It was really pretty cool.
Through the 50s and 60s, Avidus's experimentation continues. Working closely with bands like the Beatles, he invents and names the splash, ride, hi-hat, crash, and sizzle cymbals, still found on drum kits today.
The whole industry just grew immensely. It was fantastic.
Today, the descendants of Avidus I have a 75% share of a global cymbal market worth $80 million. Divided between Sabian in Canada and Zildjian in Massachusetts, it's North America's oldest family-owned company. And it's all thanks to an alchemist who struck lucky.
He didn't turn it into gold, but he did turn it into coin, which is not bad. It's not exactly what he was looking for, but not bad.
It's 1844, and sales of Samuel Colt's revolutionary revolver are so disastrous, he's made bankrupt. But a sale of just 16 Colt Pattersons to a Texas Rangers unit 2,000 miles away is about to transform his fortunes. In the summer of 1844, the Rangers track a Comanche war band of over 80 warriors. Outnumbered 4-1, the Rangers have one hope: their new Colt Patterson revolvers.
The Comanche were such fierce warriors, and they could outshoot, outride, and outfight anybody who came up against them.
But their revolvers give the Rangers the advantage over their unsuspecting enemy.
That after the first shot, they would be able to charge while the Rangers were reloading their single-shot pistols. The Patterson, the revolver, changes that. They can't do that anymore because after the first volley, there's a second volley, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth, and then a whole other pistol.
Their Colt revolvers allow the Rangers to live to fight another day. News of the dramatic battle is reported nationwide. After struggling to find a single buyer, suddenly everyone's talking about Colt's game-changing guns.
This battle is the best advertising that Colt is ever going to get because it demonstrates the power, the capability, the promise of these new revolving cylinder pistols. So this battle really changes Colt's fortunes.
Samuel Walker, one of the Texas Rangers, calls a meeting with Colt. Now a captain, Walker has a blank check to equip his men. He gives Colt his first 1,000 gun order.
And he says, and I need them in 6 months.
It's an almost impossible deadline. Traditionally, guns are handmade, each taking days to build.
It was an artisanal process. Each one was unique to him. You couldn't take the trigger mechanism out of one and put it in another gun.
So Colt secures financing for a new factory and leaps at a new idea, the assembly line. Machines built to manufacture identical, interchangeable gun components. Assembled at speed by rows of staff.
It sounds so obvious today, but it was a revolution in its day.
It's the birth of modern mass manufacturing. By 1855, the Colt factory can make 50,000 firearms a year.
This is the Colt Walker model. It would stay the largest, most powerful handgun in the world for the next 100 years or more. The Industrial Revolution begins with this revolver.
Mass manufacturing makes Colt a millionaire and leads to the creation of the most iconic revolver ever, defining an era and spawning legends.
When we think of the Wild West, we think of the Peacemaker.
September 7th, 1876. Northfield, Minnesota. The notorious Jesse James and his gang head for the First National Bank. They're packing the latest and maybe greatest Colt revolver, the Peacemaker.
The Colt Peacemaker is probably the iconic pistol of the Wild West.
It's one of the first Colts to take metallic cartridges, making it quicker to load and fire. And at $17.50, it's affordable. So affordable, the James gang find themselves facing a new threat.
All of a sudden, the average citizen in Northfield is also carrying 6-shooters.
The townsfolk, alerted to their arrival, pick off the gang's lookouts.
The Northfield robbery fits the Hollywood conception of the gunfight. Bullets thumping into walls everywhere. The James gang are now suffering the withering fire of citizens who are also equipped with the same firearm. I doubt that James took the moment to savor that irony, but it's one that we can enjoy.
Colt dies in 1862 with a fortune estimated at $15 million, $350 million today, and his company continues, producing some of the world's most iconic firearms.
The legacy of Colt is still with us today. Arms manufacturing and arms sales abroad and in the United States accounts for billions of dollars.
The United States was forged on the frontier, right? The frontier where sort of anything goes. The gun was one of the things that went. It was an essential part of the culture, the DNA, and it's hard to shake.
By the 1930s, A.P. Giannini, son of an immigrant farmer, owns the largest banking chain in America. But it's not enough. Now, he gambles his fortune, bankrolling undiscovered and exciting new talent.
He was the funding behind United Artists that allowed Charlie Chaplin and a group of movie stars to make their own movies. He was behind Walt Disney and financing Snow White, the movie that really kicked off the whole Disney empire. I mean, this man had a huge mark behind the scenes.
His investments make the Bank of America millions. But in 1932, Giannini ponders his biggest gamble yet. Architect Joseph Strauss is desperately trying to find investment for a bridge linking Marin County with San Francisco. The Great Economic Depression has driven every other financier away.
AP asked Joseph Strauss how long the bridge would last. Joseph said if it was well maintained, it would last forever. The AP said, he can't hold California back.
Giannini invests $6 million of the estimated $35 million cost. And just 5 years later, the Golden Gate Bridge is complete. His gift to the city he always loved.
It was a rally point. It was a symbol of the West and how the West was doing its part to pull itself out of the Depression.
For his part, A.P. Giannini never forgets his humble beginnings. He donates his bonuses to universities and medical research. And when he dies in 1949, he leaves an estate of less than $500,000.
AP spent more than 40 years building the Bank of Italy, and yet was not personally enriched by it. It's hard to imagine among the very, very well-compensated CEOs and presidents of banks in our time. I think it's truly remarkable.
In the quest for guns and gold, 4 men and a woman changed the world. At the barrel of a gun, with an ancient secret, by standing up for the needy